This is Michael Madison, a convicted serial killer, kidnapper, and extremely violent sex offender.
In the first charge, you're charged with aggravated murder in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2903.01. You did purposely cause the death of an unidentified female while committing another felony. The offense was committed 1 week to 9 months prior to the finding of the body. That is a Jane Doe murder. The same date, on or about the 22nd day of July, Michael Madison did purposely cause the death of an Angela Deskins. 22nd day of July, Michael Madison did purposely cause the death of an unidentified female.
On July 19th, 2013, Madison was arrested for strangling 3 women to death. 18-year-old Sherelda Terry, 28-year-old Shatisha Sheely, and 34-year-old Angela Deskins. He had done this out of, in his own words, a hate for the female species, which he claimed came from his extremely abusive childhood. After killing the women, Madison kept their bodies as trophies, stashed in body bags on his second-floor balcony, before the overpowering smell of death forced police to investigate. Madison was imprisoned with a $6 million bail after his arrest on July 19, 2013. It took 4 long years in court before Madison received his final sentencing. Even Nancy McDonald, the judge, is too horrified to stay impartial while describing his crimes.
Inhumanity of what one human being could do to not one, but 3 human beings. It is incomprehensible. You cajoled, lured, and deceived Shatisha Sheely, Angela Deskins, and Sherelda Terry to your apartment for your depraved purposes. You folded them in half, binding them so that their feet were up by their ears. You wrapped them in multiple layers of trash bags, and you discarded them.
During the sentencing, Sherelda's father, Van Terry, took the stand. Despite his emotional state, he remained in control.
I guess we're supposed to, in our hearts, forgive this. Which touched our families, taking my child.
Halfway through speaking, the father then turns to look directly at Madison. Seeing Madison's smug smile off camera is too much for the father to take. And suddenly, Terry had enough. In a rage, he immediately lunges at Madison. Deputies rush to stop him. The entire time, Madison continues to smirk at the father. Thankfully for the father, he wasn't charged and was just forced out of the courtroom. After a 15-minute break, the judge announced Madison's sentence. At once, the killer's smugness washed away.
Upon consideration of the relevant evidence, the testimony exhibits admitted in mitigation, it is a judgment of this court that the aggravated circumstances of course of conduct, felony murder, kidnapping, felony murder, rape, outweigh the mitigating factors by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Accordingly, the sentence of death is imposed upon the defendant, Michael Madison, on counts 1, 4, and 7.
Madison's execution date was set for May 15, 2024, but has since been postponed along with every other scheduled execution in the state of Ohio since 2020. Madison was not the first person to make someone go ballistic in the courtroom, and he certainly won't be the last, as we'll soon see. This is Tristan Lamro. He was arrested in 2009 after shooting his wife, Misty, multiple times. During his preliminary hearing, Lamro claimed that Misty's death was an accident caused by him trying to stop her from shooting herself. He stuck with this statement even though his wife was shot 5 times from an angle that ruled out self-harm. In 2011, Lamro finally pleaded guilty to the charges. Now in court, Lamro's trial proceeds as expected until Misty's brother, Jason Wilson, is called to take the stand. Wilson passes him by, staring daggers into Lamro's eyes. But Lamro stares right back, completely unfazed. Wilson delivers an impact statement. He's clearly tensed. Shoulders raised, as if he's ready to pounce. Lamro seems to have picked up on it, rocking back and forth in his chair. Then Misty's brother turns to speak directly to the man who shot his sister several times. At once, the tension spikes. Wilson's at the end of his rope. The deputies watch on until he makes a move to lunge. The deputies finally spring into action. Lamro jumps to his feet as if he's ready for a fight. but then a deputy tackles him to the ground. It takes 2 of them and 2 bailiffs to take down Wilson. And in a matter of seconds, Wilson is handcuffed. He apologized for his actions but was immediately removed from the courtroom. Fortunately for Wilson, he didn't face any charges. As for Lamro, he was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison for the murder of his wife. But his troubles didn't end there. According to an article in 2011, he was also stabbed with a sharpened screw by his cellmate in the Utah State Prison, while the other inmates cheered on. These last 2 family members got off lightly, but let's see what happens when they manage to get some hit in on the killers. This is Dale Williams. He's being sentenced for killing his ex-girlfriend, Elizabeth Pledger Stewart, in broad daylight in the summer of 2017. Williams had stalked Elizabeth for a long time before making his move, choosing the perfect spot he knew she would go by on her way to work. Finally, he ran her car off the road, causing it to crash, then shot his ex-girlfriend down, all during the morning rush in front of hundreds of witnesses. Finally, in 2019, the killer is about to be sentenced for his crime. Elizabeth's daughter is called up to deliver her impact statement, but Anthony Dees and Jerome Stewart Jr., the victim's sons, snap as soon as they see Williams. The 2 sons run through the deputies in the courtroom to get to their mother's killer. Dees makes it past the deputies trying to restrain him and reaches Williams. The killer, realizing the danger, starts kicking, trying to fight Dees off. Stewart doesn't make it that far and is slammed against the wall by a deputy. Dees grabs Williams by the ankle and drags him off the bench and across the floor. 2 deputies manage to tackle him, but Dees keeps kicking at his mother's killer. Now Stewart forces himself out of the deputy's grasp and lands a few punches on Williams. The deputy tries his best to get Stewart off Williams, but he keeps landing hits. With the courtroom in chaos, a 4th deputy walks in and tases Williams. Finally, the deputies manage to restrain them both, putting an end to the assault. Following the chaos, both brothers got arrested. Later, they were found guilty of assault and received a fine, as well as a 30-day jail sentence each. As for Williams, he was given 23 years to life in prison for the murder of his wife. Just being in the same room as their mother's killer was enough to make 2 brothers snap. But how does that compare to a father's rage when he's forced to stand near his daughter's killer? This is Dwayne Smith, and he just attacked Clifford Thomas, one of his daughter's killers. Clifford Thomas and Jasmine Gordon were arrested after the murder of 3-year-old Camilla Smith and convicted of involuntary manslaughter. In court, Smith is on his way to the stand when he decides to let loose. Thomas realizes Smith can no longer fight back and tries for a swing, but the deputies hold the killer back. The entire time, Gordon, Jamila's mother, is seen crying in her seat in the courtroom while her lawyer tries to console her. Later that day, Gordon was sentenced to 7 to 15 years for involuntary manslaughter and 14 to 25 years for first-degree child abuse. Thomas's trial was rescheduled and he was sentenced to 6 years to 15 for involuntary manslaughter and 1 to 2 for resisting and obstructing a police officer. The Wayne County Sheriff's Office later stated that no charges were pursued against Dwayne Smith, as the judge declined to hold him in contempt of court. He was, however, not allowed to return to the courtroom after the punch. The death of a child can make anyone snap at any time, both during and after sentencing. Like in the case of Frank Delian Jr., who is facing charges for murder. In January 2022, Frank shot his girlfriend Diamond Alvarez 22 times in the back. He would miss his court date due to a car accident scheduled for October 2023, but was taken into court the next day. Finally in court, Frank took a plea deal in exchange for a 45-year sentence. Moments later, after Alvarez's mother finishes her impact statement, she looks at Frank, who smirks back at her. Infuriated, she headed to confront them but was held back by a sheriff's deputy. But suddenly, Diamond's uncle jumps in from the gallery and starts attacking DeLeon. Before deputies can stop the brawl, DeLeon's mother joins in and starts attacking Diamond's mother, resulting in Diamond's aunt rushing to her defense. At last, the deputies got a hold of the situation and finally the judge can clear the courtroom. Following the scene, the victim's mother gave a brief statement, apologizing for her outburst.
It was wrong of me. That was wrong of us because we're not monsters. But it's so much hate because I want my daughter back. And what he did it was horrible. Seeing my daughter there and looking at him that he did that and he's laughing in my face. It was very wrong, and I'm so sorry for that.
In a later statement, DeLeon's mother claimed that her son took the plea deal to keep the family safe. His crime had caused tension in the neighborhood, and not all the victim's family were able to attend the sentencing from, in their own words, fear of retaliation. Diamond's uncle was later charged with misdemeanor interference with public duties. Tragedies like this bring out the worst in people, especially when someone close to you is the murderer. This is Quinn Bose walking out of the court after just having been sentenced for the death of his 3-month-old son. Now, Bose was arrested in 2018 for killing his baby boy, Parker Bose. The cause of death was blunt force head trauma. He was initially facing up to 40 years in prison when a plea agreement was reached in July 2019, reducing his sentence to 25 years. We can see Bose walking out of the courtroom to be escorted into prison when he gets some unexpected retribution. The man who punched him is Jeremiah Hartley, the baby's uncle. The deputies immediately restrain him, then drag Bose away to safety. It takes 3 people to restrain Hartley, holding him hand and foot to make sure he doesn't get away. The victim's uncle goes unwillingly, but can't resist making one last request.
One more.
Hartley's family later admitted that they had no idea he was going to attack Bose, but agreed that Hartley was most likely upset over Bose's reduced sentence. The judge charged Hartley with battery and contempt of court. He was first given 100 days in jail, but a bond was set for his battery charge, and he was released shortly after. Victims' loved ones can be expected to act unreasonably, especially when the suspect doesn't get the punishment they believed he deserved. Like in the case of James Douglas Gonzalez, charged with the shooting and killing of Matthew Hall. The year is 1992 and Gonzalez is being taken to court for his sentencing in Mobile, Alabama. The victim's father and his brother Kevin are anxiously waiting for the murder conviction. Except Gonzalez seems to get away with it. He claimed Matthew had attacked him in a motel parking lot, prompting him to shoot in act of self-defense. The jury, realizing that was the case, didn't convict him for murder but for negligent homicide, a misdemeanor charge instead. But Kevin wasn't having it. Kevin Hall charges from his seat, jumping over a partition, rushing towards Gonzalez. He manages to grab Gonzalez before deputies restrain him. Suddenly, the victim's father joins the melee. It takes 8 deputies to break up the brawl. Shortly after, the defendant is taken off to safety. As for Kevin and his father, they're both given 5 days in jail in contempt of court, while the defendant was given a year in prison. Parents understandably lose their restraint, especially when faced with the children's killers, as we'll see in this next case. This is Lindy Jones. He's being sentenced after pleading guilty to the murder of Willie Fields in August 2019. Just before the sentencing, Fields' family addresses the court with an emotional impact statement.
Your Honor, I just want to let you know just what they took from me. They took away my only child. It's been so hard.
But just being near his son's killer is too much for the father to take. The victim's father's so fast, neither of the 2 deputies realize what's happening before it's too late. He punches Jones in the head and he drops to the ground. Deputies rush to break up the fight. As Jones is helped up, he charges at the victim's father before deputies are able to restrain him. The entire time, Fields' father doesn't break eye contact with Jones even once. Jones continues to fight the officers until deputies drag him out of the courtroom. Following this scene, Jones and his brother Jalen were charged with the murder of Willie Fields. The father was charged with assault and battery in the 3rd degree. The father's rage was too much for him to bear, as was this son's when he was forced to confront his murdering stepfather. This is Vashon Flowers. He's being sentenced for murdering his wife, Jamie Thomas Flowers, in May 2019. According to the prosecution, Thomas Flowers' daughter, Paris Jones, was in the bedroom with her 2-year-old son when Vashon shot his wife down.
He got down on the ground and started choking my mother. Actually, I heard, "You don't have to do this, Vashon. Please don't do this. You don't have to do this." And then I heard gunshots. I got up and I left out of the room. She was sitting straight up against the wall.
You observed some blood?
Yes, on her shirt. Gunshots, bullet holes in her shirt, and blood.
In the sentencing, Vashon was brought before the judge and the members of the victim's family. But one look at the man was too much for London Thomas, the victim's son, to take. It takes London 4 seconds to clear 2 partitions and a desk and is only stopped as someone gets in his way. Vashon casually struts out of his grasp, while 2 deputies struggle to keep his attacker away. The court instantly erupts into chaos. It takes 5 people to restrain London. Finally, London's cuffed by the deputies. For his outburst, London Thomas was held in contempt and barred from entering the judge's courtroom as well as any future hearings of Vashon Flowers' case. Flowers was charged with open murder, which covers first and second-degree murder and manslaughter, and was a habitual offender with 4 prior early felony convictions, including assault and substance trafficking. Flowers had refused to testify in his trial and claims that he is innocent. Now, not every case we'll look at is about killers getting retribution. Sometimes, people's crimes are just so heinous that they have earned every outburst. This is Larry Nasser, a doctor being interrogated after a complaint of sexual abuse by one of his patients.
What I was told was that the patient was concerned that I was inappropriately touching her and didn't understand why. Yes, I'm there, and yes, it's medical. It's not, I don't know how else to say it, but I'm totally taken by surprise, but at the same time, feel like crap that someone would feel that I was doing something inappropriate to them. Because this is how I make my living. This is what I do. I've helped scores of people by doing these personal issues. There's such an important trust, and to feel that I violated that with someone, that the sexual stuff for, it's the trust. That's the hard part for me.
Nasser played the sexual abuse allegation off as part of a medical examination and was not charged for his behavior. But the doctor wasn't off the hook. In 2015, the CEO of the USA Gymnastics team came forward with the names and statements of 3 former victims of Nasser that were willing to be interviewed. In response, the FBI opened an investigation that failed to get any results. Nasser was interviewed again in 2016. Still, he played the allegations off as medical procedure.
I mean, that's the whole thing is getting that adjustment. That's what hurts. It's like, because it's like blindsiding someone. It's like you're doing this and you're doing it for good to help someone, and they're giving you the positive feedback that you're helping them. How do I know I'm hurting them if I'm getting the positive feedback that I'm helping them? You can explain something and then go ahead and treat it. But if you're actually talking to them while you're doing it, it's better than, in my mind, than saying, because I'm trying to get real-time feedback, not here's what I'm going to do, then I go to do something different. If I'm actually touching the patient and asking for feedback while I'm touching the patient too, that allows for, in my mind, more, feedback.
In August 2016, the Indianapolis Star begins to report on Nasser's misconduct in a series of articles that reveal Nasser abused gymnasts as children as early as the 1990s. He's tried in Ingham County, Michigan for 3 counts of sexual misconduct, but by then, 50 more victims have made claims against him. Later that year, he's arrested on child pornography charges, with the Justice Department reporting the FBI's failure to properly investigate Nasser, resulting in the FBI being sued for $130 million by Nasser's victims. In 2018, Nasser is finally tried for sexually assaulting more than 200 women. It takes a full week for his victims to give their impact statements.
It was during this time, I estimate I was approximately 6 years old, that Larry Nasser began to sexually abuse me. Then I went into the back room, and that's when everything changed. I was alone in the back room with him. He had me lie down on the table, and he sexually assaulted me. He touched the most innocent places on my body that day. I remember fear and pain and asking myself, what is happening?
As soon as I returned to the gym after enduring the abuse at the hands of Larry Nasser, I chalked up my hands and parts of my body to cover up what had just happened. I had become his real-life child pornography subject, his plaything and experiment.
Finally, the father of one of the abused daughters comes to the stand with a personal request.
I would ask you to, as part of this sentencing, to grant me 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon. Would you give me 1 minute?
You know that I can't do that. That's not how I...
When his request was denied, the father took matters into his own hands.
Well, I'm going to have to get rid of one.
It took 3 sheriffs to restrain the father and handcuff him before he was finally let out of the courtroom and order was restored. The father later apologized for his outburst and faced no charges. After a week of victims sharing their chilling stories of abuse, Nasser took the stand.
Your words these past several days, your words have had a significant emotional effect on myself and has shaken me to my core. I also recognize that what I am feeling pales in comparison to the pain, trauma, and emotional destruction. There are no words that can describe the depth and breadth of how sorry I am for what has occurred. An acceptable apology to all of you is impossible to write and convey. I will carry your words with me for the rest of my days.
The judge's response was equally chilling.
As much as it was my honor and privilege to hear the sister survivors, it is my honor and privilege to sentence you because, sir, you do not deserve to walk outside of a prison ever again. You have done nothing to control those urges, and anywhere you walk, destruction will occur. I'm giving you 175 years, which is 2,100 months. I just signed your death warrant.
Nasser was given 40 to 175 years in prison to be served after his 60-year child pornography sentence that he pled guilty to in 2017. Nasser will never leave prison alive, and his stay hasn't been easy. In 2023 at Florida's federal prison, he was stabbed 10 times by another inmate and was hospitalized.